Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Bestech Seraph, a Kombu design. That's the logo right there. And if you remember, I've reviewed his designs before, and they tend to be some of the most interesting in terms of aesthetics that Bestech releases in collaboration with other designers. This is definitely that. There's a lot of interesting elements here. Not going to be for everybody, but then again, I don't think any knife is for everybody. Thanks so much to Bestech for sending this in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. This was available, surprisingly not available at Blade HQ, or at least that I've seen. I found a listing on White Mountain Knives. That was the least expensive, but it also showed out of stock. I think this is available on the Bestech Knives official website for $10 more. We'll talk about that, but I just wanted to let you know. I will link where it's in stock as of this video, as of the recording of this video. Let's go ahead and measure this knife. The Seraph is coming in at 8 1/4. Blade length is coming in at 3.65. Cutting edge is a little over 3.5. It's not quite 3.6. It's just maybe 3.55, I guess. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others, up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. It's not fair. I mean, it's a full-size knife for sure. It's definitely larger than the 8020.5, and it does feel fairly robust, but not quite as robust as something like the 8010. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Yeah, this one's definitely about the same size as the PM2, but it also definitely feels larger due to all the titanium. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action on this knife? It's not it's not like a false shut knife, but there's enough weight and mass in that blade, and the pivot is smooth enough that it really doesn't take that much encouragement to get it to fall into the closed position. You can also use the fuller to reverse flick it, and as close as it is, like you just saw me there, get a little bit of double clutch. If you get it exactly right there, the detent ball's up on the face of the blade. But it is close, and those of you who are irritated by double clutch, meaning by the time the flipper tab reaches your thumb on a one-handed disengagement, if the detent ball is not quite up on the face of the blade, you get this situation where it's coming back. Now I can manipulate it to do that. That's how close it is, right? So once you feel it, you're like, I just need to get it, and then turn it immediately and not allow that blade to kick back up and that detent ball to fall back off the face of the blade. Very, very close, and I believe, yeah, there's a detent ball ramp here. Just very subtle, right? So you're probably hitting at the tail end of it when you do that. If you open your knife and close your knife, well, if you close your knife with two hands, it doesn't matter, right? Some people actually prefer there be a ledge right there. I had somebody argue with me the other day and said, I prefer it because I like to kick my knife closed. Like that. Okay, that's fine. However you want to look at it, right? Just letting you know exactly where the detent ball is, and then you can make your own decision. The action is good though, and being able to reverse flick it and flip it and have the action be very satisfying, it's welcome. Let's go ahead and do a comparison of carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It is thick in areas. I think it's a little deceptive though, because this is the pivot area is much wider. Like the actual frame is quite a bit smaller. So if you look at kind of like this, it's not so bad down here. It's just the pivot area is super duper thick, right? Let's go ahead and do carry profile length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. So this is, I don't know, it's not like the most typical object in the pocket. Like my experience with it is I was like, this is a little bit different, but then again, the total size of the object, the mass, the weight, it really wasn't that far out of the norm. It's just kind of an oddball shape, kind of, right? I think a lot of that is just I'm being constantly aesthetically reminded that this thing is very different. I mean, that's Kombu, if I'm still pronouncing his name correctly. His designs are always like this. They're always off the wall. He is definitely not designing knives that are meant to attract everybody. He's like, I like this. Here it is. Think whatever you want. I mean, that's clearly what's going on here. And you know what? I kind of respect him for that. You know, I respect designers in general because they're making this stuff knowing that some people will think it's the ugliest thing in the entire world and other people will absolutely love it. And I'm not 100% sure that they really care all that much. It's more so just about getting something that they envisioned, you know, bringing it into physical existence. And I think that's kind of cool. So anyways, the total size of object you're putting in your pocket is relative to the PM2, but it's definitely heavier. I mean, you have height in some areas, lengthwise, closed up. It's about the same overall length as the PM2, maybe shorter. It's definitely a bigger object than the Spyderco Para 3. In terms of weight, what are we looking at for materials? By the way, we are looking at titanium with lots of titanium with titanium. And then titanium, sorry about that. Apparently my kids are throwing bowling balls back and forth upstairs. We have a titanium pocket clip, lots and lots of titanium everywhere. And we have an M390 blade. What are they hardening it to? On Bestech's website, it lists that the M390 is being hardened from 60 to 62, which I appreciate, and I feel that not everybody cares about that, but the people who do care about it tend to lean towards the idea that M390, 20CV, and 204P, when you're considering pocket knife geometry, should probably fall between 60 and higher, right? 60 to 62, just fine. We got a lot of companies doing 59, 61, and people don't seem to like that. I kind of agree with the first group of people. 60 to 62, I think, that's where you want to be for production M390 with this type of geometry. So there you go. And you can decide how you want to, you know, how you want to judge that. But let's get this. We're on milliliters here. We're hitting tare. That's the wrong thing to hit. But we want to get that back to, there we go. So the weight of this is 4.2 ounces. That's pretty unsurprising. Well, actually, you know what? I thought it would be heavier. I'm gonna admit. I was about to pretend like I knew it was going to weigh that much. Honestly, I thought it would weigh closer to 5 ounces. I wonder if it's because the balance slightly butt heavy. Not really, though. I wonder why. Maybe it's just aesthetically loud designs seem heavier because there's just visually more for me to take in, right? I don't know. It's weird. Your brain plays tricks on you, right? Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel, or the pinned comment right at the top of the comment section. The pivot is a T8, just one side. That's great. Lock bar insert screw, which you never have to take out, is a T8. Body screws, T8, T8, T8. Probably the hidden screw under here is a T6. That's usually what we see, but it could be T8. In any case, this is not going to be a difficult knife to take apart. Bearings, a couple of pieces. Well, it's more than that, though. This looks like a... No way. I think this thing actually did fool me. It is not a separate inlaid piece of material. This is actually one piece of material. That's why I was like, man, they've got like a totally separate inlay here. But I looked back here and look at that little, where it looks like it's disconnected, it actually disappears. I'm glad I took a look at that. I really did think this entire time it was two pieces. No, it's just titanium. It's actually a lot more simple than I thought. So this should not, it looks like it would be an intimidating thing to take apart, but it absolutely isn't. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness, which I bet that's going to come up at about 150. That's what I would guess there. Let's give it a shot here. 143. Okay, so thinner than I thought, but still slightly thicker than the average. If you think like me and the average is 130, 135. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on into the meat and potatoes here. What a weird looking knife. And not bad weird. I mean, it's definitely going to be polarizing. You're going to have people saying the aesthetic makes perfect sense to me and it's beautiful. And you're going to have people saying the aesthetic makes no sense to me and it's very ugly. But I feel like plenty of you will still be able to appreciate the effort here. These lines don't seem random to me. Everything seems to have purpose, whether you enjoy it or not. It kind of has this in and out or kind of up and down swooping. I don't know how I would describe that. I mean, it's not, the way that I'm describing it certainly isn't the best. I feel like the handle, if you were just looking at the handle, sometimes I look at this and I think, what would I expect the blade look like, right? Based on how the handle looks. And I think the blade is really cool, but I feel like it's a lot less complicated than the handle. So while it does flow, it seems to lose its complexity as it transitions from pivot to blade. Some people might like that, some people might not. It just depends on what you're expecting. Again, either way, this is, you know, what combo we wanted to make with this. I do like that we have kind of it's neat to have the transition from shiny flat to kind of a matte, or like it's like an acidy, fuller and bevel down to the cutting edge. It's kind of neat. It also matches the same finish with this huge, I guess we're going to call that a pivot collar, and that is a separate piece. You can see there the same two different finishes, right? What is the purpose of that? As far as I can tell, it's purely decorative, but I wonder if that's actually the over travel, and I believe that that is the case there. A lot of times these big pivots, like they can use the lock bar insert to lip over and be the over travel. But if we take a look here, yeah, actually that is the case. If we look in there, and my flashlight might not be able to get it, but there is in fact a ledge underneath here that is meant to catch the pivot. And I also know that that's the case, number one, because something is catching it. You can feel it. And if you look in here, there is no, I know you guys can't really see it, but there is no lip from the insert itself. That means the pivot does it, which is neat. Is there a benefit to the pivot doing that versus the lock bar insert? I don't think so. Maybe, you know, I'm not sure how you would scientifically test that. But as long as there's something catching the lock bar, you should know, like your brain should go, it won't go any further, so I'll stop trying, right? So as long as something catches it, I feel like you're good. Interesting way to do that. Not the first time I've seen it, but it is cool. I didn't know it up until that point. I just assumed, you know, you handle as many knives as I do, and you assume if it has a steel lock bar insert in 2024, that's probably the over travel. But when you see a huge pivot like this, sometimes that's the over travel. You just have to look. So, but experience in carrying and using this, which I did lightly over the course of about a day and a half, about the same with a lot of knives that are built similarly, right? If I have something a lot more complicated that requires a more lengthy review, then sometimes that's the case. But taking a look at this, I realize this is a simple frame lock, so just carrying it around and cutting with it. Slightly awkward in the pocket. Kind of, not really though. Deploying it, no problem. Ergonomically, again, Kane, I keep saying Kane. I keep wanting to say Kane Grombo. It's Combo, which these are two different people. Sorry about that. Ergonomically, once again, with Combo's designs, they look like they're not going to be comfortable, and then they are. And if you look closely, you can see that the edges are nicely chamfered down. It's really cool. The pocket clip, a little detail I like about the pocket clip is that they've milled a couple of steps all the way around. And then there's also this peak through the center of the pocket clip. And the pocket clip also has the same sort of acidy look as the pivot and part of the blade, which I like. Same with the backspacer too. There's just a lot of detail. I feel like Combo doesn't like to leave things plain if he can help it. I feel like he just likes there to be something. Not busyness necessarily for the sake of busyness, but just if it would be left plain, it's just, I don't know, maybe the character's just not brought out enough for him. All I can do is speculate, right? But he keeps it busy in a pretty cool way. Even if the overall aesthetic, which truthfully the aesthetic of this is not for me. This is not my aesthetic taste, but I can still appreciate it. It doesn't seem completely random. It seems like every line has purpose, and I like that part at least. But anyways, ergonomically, yeah, it's pretty good. I feel like that clip is a little bit tall. It's a little bit robust. I can feel it. It's not uncomfortable. It doesn't make me go owie, owie, my hand, no. I think maybe if you used it for a long period of time, right, and you didn't wear gloves or something, maybe. But truthfully, it's just a lot less sharp everywhere than you would think. Really not bad at all. Pretty comfortable. And I can get a full grip on it. You can choke up here a little bit. I wouldn't put more than one knuckle in there. Little bit of a mental like, hey there, buddy, watch out. You're about to run your finger up on the blade with that little sharpening tool there. That's nice. I also like that the jimping on the back of the spine is completely functional. That will definitely catch your finger, right? And this allows for some control. Combination of that and there being that little sharpening tool there, you can control this and still be aware of where your index finger is if you're choking up. This has a little hole in the flipper tab with, I believe it's actually a separate piece of material that's like laid in there. It's such a funny little detail. It makes no difference whatsoever. I mean, he could have literally just had that hole just milled in there, but it actually does look like an entirely different piece of material. It's a little teeny tiny titanium ring or steel ring that's just set into that flipper tab for no other reason than just being there on a space that would have nothing otherwise. I don't know why I think that's cool. I just do, right? I really like on the pivot itself is weird, right? But looking closely, I like the little steps on the outside of the pivot. I like that we have the acidy flat part of the pivot. Then we have a small polished pivot collar. And then we have a slightly different acid finished center part of the pivot. I kind of like that. Those are the little tiny things I feel like a lot of designers just don't do. Either they don't think to do it, or it's not their, it's just not how they design, right? But I do think it's cool. So, access to the lock bar, by the way, we didn't really talk about that. It's not cut lower on one side, but the access is wonderful. It's very easy. I caught that double clutch there. That's how close it is. But it's very easy to access and kick over. So no pinchiness or anything like that. No lefty mounting position for the pocket clip, so that is a bummer for lefties. Pocket clip is also very designy and not flat. It doesn't follow. It doesn't just conform to the shape of the scales around it, which is kind of the way that people generally do it. I gotta say, I keep bringing up, my design because I'm designing a knife for the first time, and mine is substantially simpler than this. But the amount of effort, still throwing those bowling balls around on there. Sorry about that. I have no idea what they're doing. It's absolutely insane. But my design is so much more simple than this. And even then, the amount of effort it took to get things the way that I wanted was absolutely insane. I have a version of this that's going to be sandwich construction, which means I'll need a backspacer. And I have no idea how to design a cool backspacer. It's just like, make it flat, put some, put a gear pattern in there. I don't know. So I have no idea how people come up with these little geometric shapes to make it look interesting just for the people who will look. Some people will know, yep, that's the backspacer, and moving on, right? It's kind of neat. There's no option for a lanyard. He's like, nope, no lanyards. Sorry, no lanyards on this knife. That's fine. I think like that too. But people who enjoy lanyards will be a little bit bummed out. Carry depth. This is cool. I noticed this right away. I put it in my pocket and I thought, man, the entire thing really disappears. This is all that's going to stick up out of your pocket. I mean, outside the clip, but the knife part, it's going to be from literally right here. You can see how deep that is. Just a little lump, nothing else. There's even a little design on the relief cut, which is interesting. It makes me think of Pac-Man. I'm sure it's probably has meaning, or there's some sort of symbolism in there, or there's some inside joke or something. But it's just, to me, it's just interesting. Whatever it is, it's interesting that he took that space and did something with it, because most people just leave it plain, right? So kind of neat. But look at all this detail on the lock bar itself. There's so much going on here. Really cool. All the lines meet somewhere. It's real satisfying to see everything meet up, instead of just... A lot of people would look at this and probably say it literally looks like the lines go nowhere. What do you mean? I don't know. To me, I mean, that's what's neat about his designs. It's so polarizing. But to me, this is very flowy and cool. And I feel like the lines are intentional, and they kind of... and this flows into this line out here, right? So I don't feel like they go nowhere. I feel like everything kind of has a purpose. Like this line, if you kept drawing it out, would kind of hit here and go up. This line would kind of follow and curve up and end up being this line here. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being, I'm just thinking too much about it. But I kind of feel like the more I look at this, I kind of feel like I see what he was after. And then I look at other parts of it and I'm like, I have no idea what you were doing there, The end result, though, and by the way, lock up, great, totally solid. No lock stick, no pivot lash. Potentially double clutch is very, very close, very smooth and consistent in here. This feels like a Bestech. Honestly, a really nice detent. And we have very nearly perfect centering that if it is off, it could have just been me from me flipping it, right? But very easy to adjust if that's not the case. I've probably flipped this about 60 or 70 times. Since it came in, which was actually a long time ago. Price tag on this knife, White Mountain Knives, where it was sold out, was $279. I think Bestech's website lists it as $289. Is that fair? Couple of little details here. Number one, the M390 is properly heat treated, in my opinion. Number two, there is clearly more effort in this design than your typical titanium and M390 folding knife. I mean, holy moly, that's a lot of milling, right? You got a lot of people who start they say something like, I'm a machinist and that's not how much it costs. That's one element of it, right? This is definitely much more expensive to do than just making a rectangle of titanium and calling it scales, right? This is clearly more expensive to do. So there's a lot more effort here, and there's also very subtle contouring. It is not completely and totally flat. It's very subtle, 100%, but there is contouring here. I think maybe if we can give a little bit of a close-up, I can give an example. Some of these are like beveled, right? There's a lot of machine work in general, but there is a little bit of contouring, which means there's additional shaping going on, and that requires some more complex machines. Doesn't surprise me at all. Bestech has those machines and has been doing it for a long time. Milled clip, milled backspacer, right? Just a lot of milling in general. A lot of extra work that's involved here that you don't see in a lot of other knives. I always say if you're going to get close to or over that $300 price point and you're just going to be using titanium and M390 and you're a Chinese OEM, you had better bring the heat somewhere else. And I feel like this does. On the flip side of that, it's clearly not going to be for everybody, right? Some people are going to look at this and go, great, a lot of effort. I can see how they got there. It's just not for me. I think that's totally reasonable, and yeah, it makes perfect sense. This is not a knife that I'm going to say makes perfect sense for people to run out and buy it, right? So I'm not going to like specifically recommend this knife over a lot of other knives, but it's like I say at the end of a lot of reviews like this. I appreciate the effort involved. Kambu is, again, I know I'm probably mispronouncing his name. I'm trying. He is a really interesting designer that puts a crap load of effort into this stuff. And the end result is always interesting. Love it or hate it, it's always interesting, right? This is not a knife that I would personally buy for myself, but I can completely understand people who do love this design aesthetic, why they would be so enthusiastic to buy it. I think people who do like how this looks from, this camera perspective, in person, I think you're going to love it even more, right? And obviously, I think that the price matches, not just the materials, but the execution of materials, considering that this is manufactured very, very well, but in China. So that's what I think. Not recommended for the vast majority, but for the people who enjoy how it looks, I think you'll really, really like this knife, and I think the price is fair. That's going to be it today, guys. Again, this will be linked in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.